As Umbrella's bioorganic weapons have mutated over the years, Resident Evil's story has changed along with it. But amid these changes, old faces and names, from the Redfields to the Weskers to the Birkins of the world, keep popping back up. So with the Resident Evil 2 remake on the way, we're taking you through the whole series, from the progenitor virus to the mold and everything in between. Hi, I'm Sydney with The Leaderboard, and this is the Resident Evil timeline. December 4th, 1966. The whole story starts, innocently enough, with some lovely flowers. Inspired by the writings of Henry Travis, Doctors Oswell E. Spencer and James Marcus set out to find the Stairway of the Sun. Travis wrote that the Stairway of the Sun is a West African flower believed by locals to bestow amazing powers. Turns out the flower contained a virus that is capable of scrambling up a host's DNA. I know the 60s were all about flower power, but this seems a little intense. With the newly dubbed progenitor virus, Spencer believes he can create an improved human race. All he needs is some time, research, and of course, cold hard cash. And what better way to fund a eugenics-based science project than by starting a pharmaceutical company? And so, along with Edward Ashford, Spencer and Marcus founded Umbrella Pharmaceuticals as a front for their research into the progenitor virus. Spencer sets up a research base in the Arklay Mountains, complete with its own booby-trapped mansion to keep intruders away. Perhaps Spencer should have settled for a quaint log cabin, because these three stooges started running out of money for their research. To pick up the financial slack, the three agreed to independently develop strains of the progenitor virus as bioorganic weapons and sell them to the US military. This scheme would come to be known as the T-Virus Project. July 1968. With the help of his son, Alexander, Edward Ashford had been doing his own progenitor research. When an accident occurs at the research base that was all too convenient for Spencer, if you catch my drift, Edward Ashford is infected with the progenitor virus and dies. Alexander is left as the sole head of the Ashford family, an inheritor of his father's research. Unfortunately for him, Alexander was more into genetics than viruses. He couldn't make heads or tails of the progenitor virus. So, to reclaim his family status, he puts his noggin to use the only way he knows how: cloning. Using DNA from the Ashford family matriarch, Veronica, Alexander launches the Code Veronica project. 1971. After 3 years of research in the Antarctic base, Code Veronica is complete, and the twins, Alexia and Alfred, are born? Created? Created sounds better. January 13th, 1978. After years of research, James Marcus completes development of the T-virus. Rather than dying, like with the progenitor virus, hosts infected with the T-virus become mindless, flesh-hungry zombies. Now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes of Resident Evil. But Oswell E. Spencer wasn't there to pop the bubbly over Marcus's success. By this point, the two have been in a BOW arms race to crack the code of the progenitor virus first. Marcus's development gave him a solid lead in the fight to control Umbrella. It's alright though, because Marcus doesn't celebrate alone. He hires two young, ambitious upstarts to his team that same year, William Birkin and Albert Wesker. I bet those two have a bright future ahead of them. 1981. At just age 10, Alexia Ashford becomes the head scientist of Umbrella's Antarctic facility. 1983. Back in the frozen hellscape of Antarctica, things are starting to boil over. Alexia and Alfred discover how their father came to create them and resent him for it. So, the gruesome twosome begin experimenting on Alexander. A bona fide virology genius, Alexia combines the progenitor virus with genes from a queen ant. Then, naturally, she injects that concoction into Alexander. The experiment fails, and Alexander is morphed into a terrible genetic monstrosity, known only as Nosferatu. But Alexia is not deterred. She injects herself with this new T. Veronica virus, lovingly named after her cell donor. To avoid Alexander's fate and contain the virus, Alexia puts herself into a 15-year cryostasis and tasks Alfred with overseeing her sleep. 1988. James Marcus had spent plenty of time tinkering with his fancy new T-virus, making all kinds of fun, horrible creations. While he's working on his latest project, the Queen Leech, Marcus is assassinated by the Umbrella Security Service under orders from Oswell Spencer. I guess Spencer finally let his paranoia get the better of him because he sent his best boys, Wesker and Birkin, to do his dirty work. Marcus and his Queen Leech are discarded, and William Birkin is given official credit for developing the T-virus, along with all of Marcus's research. Yikes! That's like Edison levels of unethical science. And what a year for unethical science it was. Using Marcus's research, Birkin begins development of the T2, better known as the Tyrant. Meanwhile, across the pond, Umbrella Europe creates a parasite lovingly called Nemesis Alpha. Tyrant and Nemesis? I'm feeling STARS struck with all these classic Resident Evil villains. 1991. Even though William Birkin's name doesn't have the panache of, say, Tyrant or Nemesis, he's still a pretty villainous dude on his own. Using the Nemesis alpha parasite developed in Europe, he discovers a new strain of progenitor virus, the Golgotha virus, or G virus, if you're hip. Unlike the T virus, which causes the host's mind and body to deteriorate, the G virus lets its host repair dead cells. Spencer must have smelled the possibility of immortality in the air. He's so jazzed about the G virus that he builds Birkin a whole new laboratory underneath Raccoon City to research it. That's some prime real estate. So far, we haven't even touched the games. Umbrella has spent the last 30 years researching and experimenting with a few hitches, from Spencer's point of view that is. All the zombie dominoes have been lined up. Zombinos? Zombies? Anyway, it's time to party like it's 1998. Enter the survival horror. May 11th, 1998. Remember our old pal James Marcus? Turns out that his Queen Leech project has spent the past 10 years fusing with his mind and body. And so, as an act of revenge, the new and improved Marcus causes a total containment failure at the Arklay laboratory. The T-virus infects the staff, infected dogs escape into the Arklay Mountains, and the nightmare begins. July 23rd, 1998. Resident Evil 0. After reports of multiple zombie and dog-related deaths, the Raccoon City Police Department deploys the Special Tactics and Rescue Service to investigate the area via helicopter. The STARS Bravo team is forced to crash land after the helicopter malfunctions and conduct the rest of their investigation on foot. What a convenient malfunction, eh, Umbrella? But Bravo team aren't the only ones snooping around. Umbrella sends their best boys, William Birkin and Albert Wesker, to find out what happened, and possibly hand out some pink slips. Birkin activates the self-destruct sequence for the facility to cover the whole thing up. Meanwhile, Bravo team's rookie medic, Rebecca Chambers, destroys the Queen Leech. From there, she heads off to the Spencer Mansion to find the rest of Bravo team. July 24th, 1998. Resident Evil. Who rescues the rescuers? STARS Alpha team, of course. Alpha ventures into the Arklay Mountains to find the now incommunicado Bravo team. Their squad leader? The incomparable Albert Wesker. A double agent? I knew I couldn't trust those sunglasses. Under Umbrella's orders, Wesker searches the Spencer Mansion for any and all incriminating evidence and promptly destroys it. Except, of course, for Umbrella's research that he keeps for himself. A triple agent? Wesker, you rascal! Once the rest of the STARS team discovers they've been duped, Wesker releases the now finished T2 Tyrant. The Tyrant promptly gores Wesker, but not before Wesker injects himself with a prototype virus given to him by William Birkin. That explains Wesker's whole teleporting, red-eyed trenchcoat look. But Wesker underestimated the Resident Evil Dream Team, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. With a rocket launcher, a helicopter, and an ever-so-useful self-destruct button, the two destroy the Tyrant and the entire Spencer Mansion. Chris, Jill, their comrade Barry Burton, and Bravo Team's Rebecca Chambers all escape the explosion. You better believe Wesker escapes too! With his new highly confidential souvenirs, he decides to flip Umbrella the Bird and join a mysterious rival organization known only as the Organization. See, Umbrella? That's doing corporate espionage right. September 23rd, 1998. Like Wesker, William Birkin is pretty fed up with Umbrella. Despite all his breakthroughs, Spencer never had the decency to promote him to an executive position. So, Birkin agrees to hand over himself and all of his research to the US military. Unfortunately, Umbrella gets to him before he can make the deal. Led by Hunk, the Umbrella Secret Service has Birkin at gunpoint. At the sound of a crashing coffee mug, Hunk and the USS gun Birkin down and confiscate his work. But with his last moments, Birkin injects himself with a remaining sample of the G virus. Because it's Resident Evil, Birkin's body reacts poorly to the G virus, turning him into a horrible mutated monster. Birkin slaughters almost the entire USS team. Hunk and his pal Miguel make it out. During the fight, Birkin accidentally spills some T-virus into Raccoon City's water supply. What a klutz. September 27th, 1998. Resident Evil 3. Part 1. Over the next few days, the citizens of Raccoon City were either infected or killed by those infected with the T virus. Umbrella surveys the quickly deteriorating situation and decides to turn lemons into lemonade. Raccoon City becomes Umbrella's personal playground. They deploy their trained soldiers and a smattering of BOWs like hunters and T-103 tyrants. They just want to see how their little monsters fare would stack up in a real battle. As curious as Umbrella is about their stable of unstable genetic monstrosities, all eyes are on the Nemesis T-type. The Nemesis was designed and deployed to eliminate the surviving STARS members from the mansion incident. It's the only word the thing knows. But this lab rat is hell-bent on finding the cheese in the maze of Raccoon City. First, it takes out Brad Vickers, the STARS team pilot. Next on the list is Jill Valentine. Resident is just within tentacles reach of her, but she manages to escape, leaving the Nemesis to burn in a fire. Still, it wasn't the cleanest getaway. Jill becomes infected with the T virus during the fight. September 28, 1998. Resident Evil 2. Now infected with the G virus, a heavily mutated William Birkin is wandering around Raccoon City in search of his daughter, Sherry. That sounds sweet, but he's not looking for her out of paternal instinct. Instead, Birkin's G virus side is just looking for a compatible host, and knows Sherry is a good choice because of her blood relations. Not nearly as sweet. Eventually, Birkin implants Sherry with a G virus embryo, and the clock starts ticking. Not to worry though, Sherry. She's in good hands. The hands of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Who are they, you ask? Well, Leon's a rookie cop, and Claire's Chris Redfield's sister, who's still in college. Okay, maybe there are more qualified folks that Sherry could have run to, like her mom, Annette Birkin. Before she's killed by her now unrecognizable husband, Annette tells Leon and Claire how to create a vaccine to stop the G embryo inside of Sherry. Sure enough, the two underdogs pull through and subdue the virus. Subdue, not destroy. This is Resident Evil. You think it's ever that simple? Of course not. And one of the least simple characters in the whole series is Ada Wong, a spy for the enigmatic organization that rivals Umbrella. Ada is sent to Raccoon City to retrieve a sample of the G virus. After several run-ins with Leon, Claire, and company, Ada retrieves the G virus for the organization. But what of our sweet Billy Birkin? Well, as Claire, Leon, and Sherry are escaping the city via train, Birkin attacks in his last act of desperation. The gang evades the now blobified Birkin, flips the self-destruct switch on the train, and puts Birkin out of his misery for good. October 1st, 1998, Resident Evil 3, Part 2. Jill Valentine has been posting up in a clock tower, slowly succumbing to the T virus. Her new pal, a mercenary named Carlos Oliveira, finds a vaccine and injects Jill with it, subduing the T virus. Again, subduing. Once Jill is up and at 'em, she and Carlos hightail it out of Raccoon City. But not before destroying Nemesis with a friggin' railgun. And they made it out just in time. The US government decided to contain and cover up the situation by bombing Raccoon City into oblivion. The only details to emerge about the Raccoon City destruction incident were Umbrella's involvement. December 27, 1998, Resident Evil Code Veronica. Remember those stuffy Ashford twins, Alexia and Alfred? Well, they and their T Veronica virus eventually piqued Wesker's interest, along with his organization. He and his hive host, Capture Force, are dispatched to Rockport Island, the headquarters of Alfred Ashford. While Wesker is investigating, he encounters Chris Redfield, who is searching for his sister Claire, Umbrella's prisoner at Rockport Island. Wesker shows off his neat new powers, and Chris finds out that Claire and her new prisoner pal, Steve, were actually transported to Antarctica after handing Alfred Ashford his own ass. No match for Wesker at this point, Chris books it to Antarctica, where he encounters a no longer dormant Alexia Ashford. In the subsequent battle, Steve kicks the bucket, but Chris destroys Alexia, rescues Claire, sets the Antarctic base to self-destruct, and escapes back to civilization. Damn, Chris! No wonder your arms are so freakishly big by Resident Evil 5. You're a straight-up action movie star. If only Steve could have survived to witness your glory. While the Redfields were kicking ass and taking names, Umbrella was shuffling around with its tail between its legs. After the Raccoon City incident, the US government came down hard on Umbrella, forbidding it from doing business in the US and federalizing all the company's assets. Add the destruction of the Rockfort and Antarctic bases into the mix, and Umbrella was left licking its wounds. 2000. In collaboration with Wesker's Hive Host Capture Force, a crime syndicate known as The Connections developed a new fungus-based bioweapon. The new bioweapon, capable of controlling the mind of its host, would come to be known as the Mold. 2003. Well, The jig is finally up, Oswell E. Spencer. Umbrella has been embroiled in a legal battle with the U.S. government since the destruction of Raccoon City. Even Umbrella's top-of-the-line lawyers can't save Umbrella from the truth. No matter how many viruses you pump into them, Albert Wesker passes along some damning evidence to the U.S. government, and Umbrella is officially ruined. Spencer goes into hiding, wanted by both the U.S. and Russian governments. Geez, good luck, man. Meanwhile, on the other side of justice, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine established the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance to combat the global threat of BOWs. The best part? BSAA is a way less catchy acronym than STARS. If Nemesis ever came back, he'd have a trickier time learning that one. Shortly after Umbrella's collapse, Albert Wesker makes a deal with Tricell. Wesker agrees to help Tricell develop bioweapons if they fund his latest nefarious project, Ouroboros, 2004 to 2005. Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil Revelations. All right, hold on. Don't go punching any boulders just yet. Resident Evil 4 and Revelations are both great games, but their stories are relatively self-contained. Leon saves the president's daughter from a Spanish cult, and Jill goes on a zombie-filled cruise. If that sounds reductive, it is. Really, the most important takeaway from this part of the timeline is that Ada Wong retrieves a sample of Las Plagas in Resident Evil 4 and hands it off to Wesker and the organization. 2006, Resident Evil 5, Lost in Nightmare DLC. Back at it again in the BSAA. See, it really just does not roll off the tongue. Anyway, BSAA agents Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, the dream team, of course, track Oswell E. Spencer to his estate in Europe. When they reach Spencer's chambers, they find Albert Wesker standing over Spencer's corpse. Wesker and the dream team throw hands, bullets, basically everything they have at each other. Just as Wesker is about to bring the curtain down on Chris Redfield, Jill tackles Wesker through a window and they fall to the rocks below. Of course, the two survive the fall. I like to think that Wesker teleported himself and Jill straight to a lab before they even hit the ground. Imagine how giddy Wesker must have been when he discovered the dormant T-virus in Jill's blood. Over the years, the T-virus acclimated to Jill's body, forming a kind of antibody. Using this antibody, Wesker creates a prototype version of Ouroboros. 2007. With the remaining assets of Umbrella's U.S. branch handed off to former employees, the newer executives decide to reform the company into a private military company. Devoted to fighting against bioweapons, the new Blue Umbrella is created to atone for the original organization's crimes. April 2008. What would you do if I gave you a parasite? Would you research and develop it for me? Tricell gets by with a little help from their friend Wesker and the Las Plagas sample he acquired from Spain, courtesy of Ada Wong. Working out of Umbrella's old African Research Center, Tricell completes development of the Type 2 and Type 3 Plaga species and wastes no time infecting the citizens of Kijuju as a trial run. Classic Umbrella move, Tricell. You're well on your way. Of course, Wesker is already looking at the bigger picture. By the time Ouroboros is perfected, Wesker plans to disperse it globally via missile. Only those with compatible DNA would survive as an evolved human, while everyone else would die from exposure. March 2009, Resident Evil 5. Not so fast though, Wesker. Your old nemesis, Chris Redfield, and his new partner, Shiva Alomar, are here to stop you. After numerous encounters with infected locals, Chris and Shiva catch up to Wesker. Okay, great, but how do you fight a guy who can teleport and has super strength? You've been down this road before, Chris, but even Superman has his kryptonite. To keep his body stable, Wesker takes very specific doses of a serum called PG67A/W. Once Chris gets his hands on the serum, he injects Wesker with it enough times to even the playing field. Eventually, Wesker finds himself on the wrong side of a pool of boiling magma and is finally, for real this time, killed. Shiva, Chris, and his anchor arms win the day. The BSAA investigates Tricell's goings-on in Kijuju, and they're effectively given the Umbrella treatment, if you know what I mean. To be clear, I mean they're brought to justice through the proper legal channels, not turned into a flesh-eating zombie. Sorry, Tricell, crime doesn't pay. 2011, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Just like the first Revelations game, this game is a self-contained story. There's a new virus developed from Ouroboros. Albert Wesker has a sister who takes over a little girl's consciousness. It's a whole can of plagas that we don't need to open, since it has no bearing on the story moving forward. What can you expect from a sequel of a spin-off? 2012 to 2013, Resident Evil 6. You want to talk about a real can of plagas? Well, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, giraffe in the room, that is Resident Evil 6. With 4 different campaigns following 4 different characters over the span of 2 years, the plot of RE6 could be its own timeline video. Between Albert Wesker's illegitimate son teaming up with RE2's Sherry Birkin and the plot to clone Ada Wong, RE6 hits Kojima levels of convoluted story. Here's the important bits you should know. Carla Radames perfects the C virus by combining the T Veronica virus with the G virus. Like any Resident Evil virus worth its salt, it becomes a threat to the world's population. And, as luck would have it, the US government develops a vaccine and contains the C virus. Now that that's out of the way, let's make like Capcom and leave Resident Evil 6 in the dust. 2014. After years of developing the mold, the Connections create an all-new bioweapon capable of telepathically manipulating the mold. E-001, codenamed Evelyn, is human in appearance, designed to blend into society and control their minds after exposure. As the Connections are transporting Evelyn along the Louisiana Gulf, Evelyn loses control, infecting everyone on board the ship, including researcher Mia Winters, and destroying the ship itself. The destroyed ship eventually hits land near the Baker Ranch in Dulvey, Louisiana. Jack Baker discovers the shipwreck and brings Evelyn into his home, believing her to be a normal little girl. From there, she proceeds to infect Jack and the rest of the Bakers. You've gotta hand it to the Connections. E-001 works like a charm. January 2015. The Connections eventually catch wind of the situation and administer a serum to Lucas Baker, Jack's son. Lucas becomes their man on the inside, reporting Evelyn's behavior and further experimenting with the mold. July 2017, Resident Evil 7. Ethan Winters rolls up to the Baker residence, armed with nothing more than his car keys and a smartwatch. The poor guy is just looking for his wife Mia, and he finds her all right. Just like the Bakers, she's succumbed to Evelyn's mind control and tries to kill Ethan almost immediately. Ethan spends the rest of the night combating the Bakers, all while helping Zoe, the daughter, develop a serum. Surprisingly, Ethan succeeds. He even takes Ma and Pa Baker out too. But when Evelyn finally goes berserk, it's time for the pros to take over. In swings Chris, Boulder Puncher Redfield, working in conjunction with Blue Umbrella. They help Ethan destroy Evelyn for good, and then start tracking Lucas down. Chris prevents Lucas from sending data to the Connections and personally puts him out of commission. Umbrella contains the outbreak, and the world is rid of one more bioweapon. For now. Phew! All this talk of viruses makes me want to get a second flu shot. As crazy as it can get sometimes, there's no resisting the infectious charm of Resident Evil's story. If you're anything like Umbrella, you'll want to get a leg up on your rival organization. Arm yourself with knowledge by watching our 107 Facts about Resident Evil. Also, be sure to subscribe to the leaderboard. I've been your host, Sydney. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween!